Och nästa på tur har vi Lovisa Lugnegård. Och Lovisa är en backendutvecklare och konsult på Netlight Consulting i Stockholm. Och om någon för 6 år sedan hade sagt till Lovisa att hon skulle bli programmerare så hade hon bara skrattat. Lovisa var nämligen livrädd för datorer. Hon trodde att programmering var svart magi kombinerat med kablar och hårdvara. Men idag så vet hon ju att det handlar om människor och problemlösning. Och idag ska Lovisa prata om hur viktigt det är med en genomtänkt arbetskultur. Scenen är nu din.
What is most important when working as a software engineer? I thought I had it all clear. First, the organization. For which bigger outcome do I work? Then the product. What do I do in this organization? Then the team. Who am I working with? And then the tech stack. What I thought was the job of my dreams made me change this ordering to something like the workplace culture, the team, the organization, the product, and then the tech stack. I will tell you how it changed and why I think it is important that we think about our workplace culture and how we work as teams. My name is Lovisa Lugnegård, and as Ida said, I'm a developer at Netlight Consulting here in Stockholm. And this is today's agenda. I'll tell you my real life story, what made me change this ordering, and why we should care about the workplace culture and teams, and how we can be part of the solutions, both as software developers, engineers, and managers. 2 years ago, I thought I had it all. 2 years ago, I was working as a consultant here in Stockholm. I had an assignment I liked, I had colleagues I liked, and I was overall very happy about my job. But I felt like maybe something is missing, maybe I want to do something else, work for something bigger in a bigger organization. Maybe I wanted to do research, maybe I wanted to do just something else, see something different. So I saw this Facebook post about a job at a large international organization. And it was probably the coolest place to be for someone with my background. I'm a physics engineer. And I thought, well, I can maybe apply for this job, but I will never get it. It is too much of a competition to get in. But at least I have to give it a try. So I applied and, I got a job. And I thought it would be the job of my dreams. It was a job at a large international organization, and they have been driving research and technology, both in its own core field, but also in other parts of science and technology. I would work with colleagues from all over the world. I would help researchers to improve their ways of working, basically by providing them better software. And I would handle more data than I could ever think of. I was excited about my job, my new job, and my friends, they were almost even more excited. And I expected things to be different, of course. This organization is not situated in Stockholm, but elsewhere in Europe. But I didn't really know in which ways, and I had no idea what to expect my first day. After 4 months, I left this organization, and I quit knowing that I had accomplished less in 4 months than I usually do in 4 weeks. I quit feeling like an outsider who didn't fit in. I basically quit feeling like an empty balloon. But I also quit knowing a lot more what I value in a workplace. And I quit knowing how to not organize a team. So what happened during these 4 months? I'll tell you my story. Let's start from the beginning. Even before I joined, I was in contact with my new manager. I asked him about the computer situation, if I would get a computer or how it would work. And he said, well, you can bring your own personal laptop and we will provide you with stationary computer. I thought it was a bit strange that they expected me to have a laptop. I don't have any. But, well, as long as there is a computer in the office, I'll be fine. And the first day came, and this was in the beginning of March last year, meaning that all joint introduction for newcomers, everything was canceled because the coronavirus had just started to spread in this part of Europe. That was not really a problem for me. I'm not a big fan of small talking, and I wanted to get to my team as soon as possible to actually start working. So instead of this huge introduction, I was told to go to my office, and there I would meet another new hire in my team. We can call him Adam, and a more senior colleague. Let's call him Daniel. Daniel showed us around, and he introduced us to the team, and he also showed us our office. So Adam and I would share room, and I was really happy about this because I've often been disturbed by others in open office spaces. And thought, well, cool, we have our own room with our own key and everything. There was only one thing. The room hadn't been cleaned since the last person left. So the first thing we had to do was to clean and organize this office. It wasn't a huge problem. I just thought it was a bit strange. But after 30 minutes or so, the office was quite nice. We also got the question if we had our computers with us, which we had, because no stationary computers were ordered yet. This is maybe not a big deal, one might think. It's just about a room and computers, and we solved it. But it is also something that is not very hard for an employer to accomplish, having order a computer and have an office prepared for the newcomers. And it actually makes a difference. And this is something I bring with me, how important it is to make newcomers feel welcome and actually have something prepared for them. One of our first days, Daniel told Adam and me what we would actually do, because that was kind of vague when we got hired. And he told us that we would implement and design like an add-on to a bigger system. Basically, we would start by designing 3 API endpoints. And this sounds good, I think, and started reading up. He also told us that the plan was that we would present the design of these 3 API endpoints in September. And this was in the beginning of March, meaning that we had about 6 months for designing, not implementing. And this is quite a lot of time. Normally, I would have estimated this task of designing and implementing to maybe a few weeks. But I thought maybe there are lots of unknowns that I'm not aware of. And after a few days, we were told to implement a small feature in this bigger system. I had no idea how anything worked, and neither had Adam, the other new hire. So I asked him if we could do it together, to sit together, work together, and learn together. And he said to me, no, when things are difficult, I prefer sitting on my own. And nothing wrong with that, but we're all different. And after a week or so, both of us on our own had figured out how things work. And I started to understand why things were expected to take a bit more time. So let us think about a different setup here. In this case, Daniel, or maybe someone else in the team, I think we were approximately 15 developers, had gone through the entire system with us, or at least the basic parts, So Adam and I would have the bigger picture of the system. And since this was supposed to work for a lot of users and improve the life of a lot of users, we're not supposed to reinvent the wheel, and it would have been beneficial if we had worked together, all the three of us, instead of us sitting and trying to figure out how someone else had thought a long time ago. And in this case, the API would probably not have taken 6 months to design and implement. We were also supposed to do some operational tasks. Most were smaller tasks, like helping users who were stuck somewhere in the system. Sometimes the tasks were bigger, and we were told to assign ourselves to these kinds of operational tasks and then try out ourselves. And all good with that. I also do believe that we have to actually learn. It's not enough just sitting and looking at someone else doing things. But it was really hard to do anything when I knew nothing about how things worked. So I had to ask my colleagues for a lot of help. And the answer I got was often, well, I typed this command and then you can just replicate tomorrow. I'm not sure how you work, but for me, it is really hard to remember all commands someone else writes on their computer. So I started to update the documentation instead. And I had to ask them for help a lot of times before I got it all right. I think it would have been more effective if we could do this as well together and actually sit together and discuss why. Oh, now my lap is, okay, now lights are back. If we could sit together and actually understand why we did things and how it worked, we would also have had the opportunity to actually get to know our colleagues. I also got some other tasks, which was nice because the design of the API endpoints, it took a few hours and not a few months. These tasks meant that I had to learn some new technologies and figure things out. And all good with that. It is fun, and I like to learn. The only problem was that there wasn't too much documentation, and I couldn't get my code to work. So after a few days, I felt like I just wanted to throw out my computer out of the window. I didn't do it. So I asked my colleagues for help because it wasn't sustainable to continue working in that way. And they all said, well, no, it's really hard because we're all working remote. And if we were in the office, we could probably figure something out. But now in remote times, it's hard. Yes, by this time, we had all moved to our home offices. I told them about different tools I had previously used to solve the issue with collaborating remote, but they still said it was too much of a problem and burden. So after a while, I stopped asking. At this point in time, I also started to ask myself, what am I actually doing during my days? And am I even contributing to this team, or am I just here and doing nothing? And everyone else seemed to be so busy, but no one really knew what the others were doing, except from Daniel, the guy from the first day. He was basically everywhere. And I started thinking that maybe he is a bottleneck for our team. Some days I thought, now things are getting better. My code is even working, and I have ideas how we can improve as a team. And these days were, of course, very important. And I felt like I could actually help the team, and together we could be better and change things. And I also thought that maybe if we just start to talk about how we work, for who we work, and what works well and where we need to improve, we can actually have more fun together. I talked to Daniel about this, and he seemed to be very interested and told me about all these management and leadership books he had read. But when I suggested some practical changes, like we could maybe start having retrospectives in the team, he told me that there was no time for that. We already had too many meetings, so it would be impossible to fit it in everyone's schedule. I was convinced that if we started to actually talk about these things and talk about how we worked and what our meetings were for, then we could probably eliminate a lot of the meetings and make rest more productive. And yes, I was sure that these retrospectives would actually make us work more together and not only alongside each other, which I felt was the case. So I continued to ask for them. And after a few weeks, I guess he was just tired of me asking. He said, okay, we can have it during our weekly planning. And good enough, I thought. So I set up an agenda. I found a tool we could use for online retrospectives. And I told him how to run one because he wanted to run it himself. And I thought, well, that is just great because then you also learn things I already know at least a bit about. And just one day before the retrospective, he told me, no, I won't use your tool, but I will rather use just a shared document. I tried to explain my thoughts behind my choice, but he seemed to have no interest in that. When the meeting finally started, Daniel said something like, I think we should discuss more about how we work as a team and where we can improve. And he also said that he's and another colleague, which wasn't me, that they had planned everything. I thought it was strange because I had done all the pre-work, but I also thought maybe he just says it because he's more senior and people will listen to him, but they won't listen to me because I just started 2 months ago. But since none of them had ever been to a meeting like this, we, of course, ran out of time way before we were done. But it was still much better than nothing. So I wrote to him after the meeting, and I actually expected something like, thank you for organizing this. And then we could continue a discussion about how we could improve our retrospectives in the long term. I got no response. And I thought that was a bit strange. So what could have been done differently here? And what is actually the problem? Well, from my perspective, there are a few important things, and that is both letting in and trying new ideas and actually give credibility to those who introduce new ideas. And when there are newcomers, it is important to let them in and let them try their ideas and see if it works. If everyone just says no or take credit for their work, they will stop sharing their ideas because there is no point. And ideas in the long term, they will get lost, meaning that the team potentially will lose innovation power and productivity. Back to my team. At this point, I felt like I was fighting windmills. Was I the only one who saw how ineffectively we were working? And that most of us, we were working on other things during meetings. And that no one had respect for their colleagues' time. And I myself, I felt like I was producing nothing. And that I was actually really bad at my job. At the same time, I got feedback saying that the project I was working on went fine and that I was doing great and everything was super good. But I knew when benchmarking with myself that it was all wrong. So I wanted some more concrete feedback and started to talk about this with my colleagues, but no one seemed interested. So after a while, I stopped talking about feedback as well. Back to my team. I tried a new approach, talking to my colleagues one-on-one, just to get to know them and see what are they doing and are we even working towards the same goals? Because sometimes I was wondering, where are we as a team going? And everyone I talked to, they were super nice and friendly and helpful. But as soon as we were together as a team, everyone seemed almost a bit depressed. How come? I don't know, but I began thinking that changing this place is probably too much for me. And several times per week, the entire team and sometimes section had meetings together. So it wasn't only me having meetings one-to-one. And once a senior colleague who had recently changed team, he said, I will set up my system locally, so it will probably take some time. Everyone laughed and he said, yes, I know it will probably take a few weeks time. And the ones who laughed, they said something like, well, yes, everyone in your position, they have to go through this. And it was obvious to me that there were people sitting in this meeting who knew how to set up the system, but no one offered their help. It's that this person had to do it by himself for weeks. At this point, I was used to people not listening to my ideas, so I didn't suggest anything. Another of my colleagues, he said the exact same thing at every planning meeting, that he was moving users from one system to another, and then he added how many users there were left to move. After a few weeks, I got curious, like, what is he actually doing? How hard can it be? I am doubtful that he's actually physically moving users. I guess there is some kind of script. So I booked a meeting with him. And he told me, yes, he is moving users from one system to another. And he also told me that he had inherited the project from someone else. And that person had quit, leaving a bunch of scripts with bugs and errors. So what my colleague basically had to do was a lot of manual work to fix every time there was an error. And he told me that it was boring and that he'd been doing this for months. And he also told me that he sometimes thought about quitting the organization. And I asked myself, why did he stay? When he was finally done with this, he had a presentation about what he had done and how it maybe could have been improved so people would know in the future. And after the presentation, another colleague in another team who worked very close to us, he asked, oh, why did you do X instead of Y? Y would have been much easier and quicker. And my colleague, he answered, well, I didn't knew that it was possible to do it the Y way. And I asked myself, why didn't he ask for help? in an early stage? Or why didn't the person knowing how to solve the problem offer their help earlier instead of after the project was done? I cannot be 100% sure, of course, but I do believe that if my colleague would not have been working on his own on this, but rather together with someone else, then the project would not have taken him months to accomplish, and he would probably not have thought about quitting his job. After 4 months seeing people working alongside each other instead of actually working together, and after trying my best to change this place, I decided to leave my job and return to Stockholm. I still thought that the organization was and is the coolest place to work, and that they are doing great things, and that the project I was working on will help a lot of people and is very important. But I could not stand working somewhere where we were not working together and where no one else seemed to care about how we worked as a team. I first told my boss and then Daniel about my decision to leave. My boss said he was shocked. And he also asked me why I wanted to leave. And I told him, and he said, well, this is a free environment and one has to work very proactively to fit here. I understood it as, well, you don't really fit in. And I will also ask myself, what does work proactively mean to you if not bringing new ideas and try to get others on board? I was also afraid that he will probably never hire someone like me again. Daniel also said that he was surprised about my decision, that he had never seen anyone coming into the organization and team that fast and getting to know people and bringing new ideas and initiatives. And he asked me if he could do anything to get me to stay, but I said it was already too late. And I thought that was the problem. There was no one else being interested in how we worked, being interested in other people or the people we actually work for. And I thought that maybe it would all have been different if there would at least be someone else thinking about all these questions. I also talked to some of my colleagues before I left. One said that it was sad, me leaving, but that she understood my decision and that she would probably have made the same decision if she were in my age. She was the only other female in the team. The guy moving users from one system to another, he also told me he understood my choice, and I asked myself, why did he stay? And Adam, the one who started the same day as I did, he told me he stayed for career reasons. Having this in his resume would look very good, and then he could continue somewhere else. I left feeling like it was the best decision I'd ever made in my career. And I also left knowing that I had learned nothing about the tech we were using, but very much about how to not organize a team. And I know a lot more about what I care about when I work. The question to ask is, of course, is it even problematic that I left this organization? Or was it only that I lacked the right competence, mindset, or skill set? Of course, this might be true. I probably wasn't a good fit and they were not a good fit for me. But this is my story and it makes me very thoughtful about where I apply for jobs in the future. And when I've told this story to friends and colleagues, there is always someone else saying, that was exactly the same experience I had at my former job, and that was why I quit. And I've heard this from people working at universities, at companies, at research institutes, basically from all parts of the tech industry. Meaning people are quitting their jobs because they feel like they don't fit in, or their ideas are not listened to. They are not quitting because of the product or specific colleagues or the organization itself, but because of the workplace culture. And the main feeling I've heard is the same, that they don't fit in, and that work is done in a way they don't want to, and that their ideas are not listened to. But I still do believe that both my experiences and my friends' experiences, knowledge and ideas can be valuable for these organizations and companies. So they might actually miss something. And I'm a developer and I have a few years of experience. It is not hard to find a job. And it is not very hard to find a job where these things are valued, where workplace culture is valued, where teamwork is valued, where new ideas are valued. So the problem is not that I left this specific organization, but that my story and my friends' stories actually means that organizations, research institutes, and companies are losing innovation power just because they do not let people in. Or maybe they do let people in, but they do not listen to them. And they do not take advantage of people's diverse experience. I repeat, the most important thing is not that I do not fit in, but rather that we as a society lose innovation power and productivity just by not thinking about how we organize ourselves and thinking about the workplace culture. And I think we have too many hard problems to solve to let smart and ambitious people work in this way. Just to summarize my key learnings from these 4 months at this organization. And I think they are important both for developers, engineers, and managers. This is not rocket science, and I guess you've all heard it before, but also seriously, most of us, we aren't doing any rocket science, but our jobs can be quite difficult anyway. So even though you have a cool product, or you are a cool organization or a company, that is not everything. You need to think about how you work together. Think through the onboarding. And this is not only something for managers or HR people, it's actually something for the entire team. Your onboarding is basically like the first few seconds of a wedding speech. It sets the tone. You can save it from there, but it will be harder, right? Things will probably move quicker if you work together, especially with the new hires, because they don't know anything. And take advantage of new ideas coming in and give credibility to those bringing the new ideas. And think through how you work with the culture. This is active work. This is not just someone being nice or one person organizing one fika. So it should be recognized as real work. If we all do this, think about the workplace culture and how we can contribute to it, I believe that the tech industry will be more innovative and will continue to develop and be the place for innovation we all want it to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Lovisa. We have a couple questions for you. And the first one is, how do you think the pandemic will affect the way we work together in, let's say, 5 years? Will there be better collaboration or the opposite?
Oh, that is a hard question. I think it depends. I mean, it's up to us if we collaborate more or less, but I hope we will collaborate more. But there is, of course, a risk that if we all are sitting on our own, forgetting how nice it is to actually work together, we might collaborate less. Yes. Hard question.
Yeah, I understand. But I thought it was a good question, good answer. And I actually agree with you. And the next question is, when companies talk about their culture, say during interviews, will you be cautious about the underlying meaning of that?
Yes, I think it is important to be cautious about the underlying meaning. I mean, this when I talked to this team before joining, they said that they worked a lot together and that they used modern ways of working. But of course, I could, if I had known everything I know now, I could have seen like the warning flags already in the interview, like who was represented in the interview. I also know which questions to ask to actually dig more into how they work with the culture and how they work together.
Yes, another good answer. And that was actually all questions we had for you. But thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.